Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages. This is Tim May along with
Bill Rabinowitz.
Bill. Here we are at a signing day. I don't know how many signing days this is for you. I think 6.
It is.
This is my 34th covering Ohio State football.
Has it grown a little bit?
Has it what?
Has it?
No, actually, back in the day, man, actually, you had to scramble more because, you sat in an office, waited to hear things confirmed. You were chasing recruits all along. There weren't all these recruiting services now
right.
where you could pick up information, et cetera, which has actually made it a lot easier to kind of ferret out the fluff, if you know what I'm talking about. But back then, you were your own, as I was joking with Tom Lemming about earlier this week. Tom Lemming a couple times dictated to me his top 100 for the nation over the phone. So
what year would this
things
have been?
that would have been like in the mid 80s, 84, 85, about 85, 86 is when that really started picking up. It used to just be who is the team recruiting. Then it became who are they recruiting compared to whomever. And that's where the recruiting services all jumped on board. And now it's, as you know, there's a million recruiting services, and they're all talking to recruits all day, every day, et cetera, trying to. And everybody has their ratings and stuff. And, there's a mythical national championship now for winning it. And as Urban Meyer says, if they keep scoring anything, he wants to win it. And, from a quality standpoint, he probably did today. From a quantity standpoint, which is going to cost him in the final analysis, Alabama's probably going to end up number 1. But I'm telling you, I've been covering this team. Like I said, this will be my 34th signing day. This is as impressive as a group as I've seen.
Because there are 5 stars everywhere. You
look, 4 and 5 stars. There's only 5 or 6 5-stars.
Right, there's only 1 3-star guy, and that's the kicker, right?
Well,
maybe the wide receiver.
The wide receiver from Texas, Elijah Gardner from Kemp, Texas, where Urban Meyer has now visited for the first and maybe last time.
But it's for having only as a 21 right now, and we're still as we are doing this, we're still awaiting the decision by Marvin Wilson. That's the only kind of one left out there. You look at the secondary.
Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle from Episcopal High School in Bel Air, Texas, a 5-star who Ohio State's in on big, but Louisiana State, Florida State seem to be the favorites going into the day.
Right. So you just look at almost every position, starting with, let's say, the defensive backs, Sean Wade, Jeffrey Okudah,
Marcus Williamson.
Right. To lose the 3 guys at Ohio State
Isaiah
lost
Pryor
for the second year in a row, and to
Amir Reap.
Anymore?
No, it's amazing.
It is, but it just speaks to how well they've been able to replace these guys. And they've anticipated the possibility of losing guys like, certainly Garyon Conley, they kind of expected to lose. I don't know that they expected to lose Marshawn Lattimore or Malik Hooker, first-time starters, but they were well positioned to replace those guys.
Here's the thing, though. Everybody in the world knew Garyon Conley was going to be leaving after this year.
Right.
Not a lot of people anticipated Marshawn Lattimore even lasting the season, based on his history, but then also becoming one of the great stories in college football this year, and also probably headed to the NFL draft. He's going to shock a lot of people. He may be the first Buckeye taken.
Right.
Bottom line is you had to replace both cornerbacks and a safety for the second year in a row.
Right.
Well, actually replaced 2 safeties and a cornerback this coming year, and they still had one of the great secondaries, maybe the best secondary in college football this year. And then you go, but then on top of that, you end up getting 2 guys who are, in my opinion, 5-stars, Sean Wade and Jeffrey Okudah. Jeffrey Okudah from South Grand Prairie High School in Grand Prairie, Texas. Everybody wanted this kid. Everybody wanted Sean Wade, and they kept knocking on his door even after he committed to Ohio State the night of the national championship win over Oregon way back when. And the fact they were able to get those guys to replace 2 guys who are probably going to be drafted in the first or second round of the NFL draft is amazing.
I think Ohio State basically has a 3-year program now with these guys. They tell these guys, they expect these guys to be here 3 years. If they're there 4 years, it's almost like something's gone wrong.
3 and flea, is that what it's called now?
Maybe.
I just made that up, but I liked it. I got another one coming for you in a minute.
Okay. But then you look at, you have Tate Martell as the quarterback, and that's a hell of a quarterback room you got now. With J.T. Barrett coming back, Joey Burrow, Dwayne Haskins, Tate Martell. Then next year you have Emory Jones coming.
Probably.
Well, everything is a probably. These are not commitments.
He's committed.
These are reservations. They ought to change the word.
A lot of people think he might be the best of them all.
Right.
That's what you deal with in recruiting. Like Urban Meyer said. I remember Stan Drayton said this a long time ago. He told his running backs. He was a former running backs coach. at Ohio State, and he goes, we recruited you, and he goes, what, next year we're going to go out and try to recruit a guy who's even better than you are. I mean, that's what he tells these guys all the time. And Urban Meyer touched on that earlier today when we were talking about it. I mean, you got these big time receivers they've got coming in, led by Trayvon Grimes from that's Greg Studrawa, the offensive line coach. You can tell because he's always getting his point across.
Offensive line coaches tend to be the loudest guys in the room.
Hey, real quick, give us one quick synopsis.
This is our podcast.
You got 3 guys in this class.
No.
Really?
Go ahead. That's right.
The guy I'm really
Greg Studrawa.
The guy that really stands out to me is a kid from California. Just what sticks out to you about him?
Maturity.
Yeah.
He is outstanding. He is a physical player. They played him in multiple positions. The schedule they played and the teams they played, the competition, he dominated. You know.
Yeah, let me ask you one quick. I know you're headed out the door to go have a victory meal, but y'all have 3 offensive linemen coming in this group. You fought hard for Munford, as Urban Meyer told us. But is it amazing to you that we're now talking about offensive linemen coming in and possibly having a shot to play anymore in college football?
Absolutely. You just saw Michael Jordan. You know, so I think the time's coming. You know, guys leave early and all the things that happen in recruiting and all that. And I think that when you recruit the right guys like Michael Jordan and Josh Myers and Wyatt and Thayer, those guys now are so mature, and we can do a good job recruiting them because obviously it's Ohio State, that they have a chance to come in and play now. And just like Michael, I mean, you watch what he did this year was unbelievable, above and beyond his years. And when you can do that with those young guys, other guys see that. Hey, I can go do the same thing. So that's what's helped a lot.
You want to join our podcast regularly?
I'd love to. That'd be awesome.
By the way, your party gift, we'll get that paperweight to you in a little while.
Thanks, Greg.
Greg Studrawa, offensive line coach at Ohio State.
You never know who you're going to get.
And we were talking initially there about Wyatt Davis, this big-time offensive line, 5-star offensive lineman they signed today out of Bellflower, California, Bosco Prep High School, big-time program out there. They just won the state championship. He was named the Mr. Football of the state of California, an offensive lineman. But if you turn on his video, you can't miss him. It's kind of like, I hate to say it because I'm not comparing him, but when you turned on, got to watch Orlando Pace's video way back when, some offensive linemen jump out at you, and definitely that kid did. But, of course, Josh Myers, as you did a story on back in the fall, he's expected to come in and contend immediately. And then Thayer Munford, who you did a story about on our website today, who
he's the last edition.
Yeah.
He was the last edition. The kid from Cincinnati originally went to Massillon to rejoin his coach, who Greg Moore, who went Nate Moore, who went from LaSalle to Massillon. There was a whole thing with the OHSA accusing them of recruiting. It was finally resolved. Thayer Munford had to get his grades in order, had to get his weight down. A late addition to the class, and they feel like he can be a real good one.
Yeah, and and we were talking about the defensive backs a while ago. I mean, Baron Browning's a 5-star out of Texas, Kennydale linebacker. Right. But the kid they got, the Werner kid out of Indianapolis, I'm not a coach, but man, go turn on the video of this kid and watch just his last step and a half before he makes a play. It's like he's shot out of a cannon. I mean, Ohio State wanted him in the worst way to begin with, Pete Werner, and he committed to Notre Dame. Then he backed off from that commitment after all the chaos that was going on in Notre Dame late in the year. They lost their defensive coordinator, et cetera, and Ohio State jumped on him again, and he committed. But those are almost the hidden gems. It's hard to say that a 4-star guy would be a hidden gem in a class because he wouldn't be a lot of other places. But in this class, he's a guy to keep your mind on. But it could be a riser, a fast riser.
Right, and they added to the defensive line, and like his name is escaping me right now from the All-American Bowl. Who was the one who was?
Chase Young.
Chase Young, who was spectacular in that game.
5-star.
If you saw that at all. And he's going to join a defensive line that obviously the ends on this defensive ends on this team already are, obviously they're stacked. And you add him to the mix at defensive tackle, and the defensive line on this team is going to be phenomenal.
Well, Chase Young, we all remember, from Friday Night Lights back in July. He showed up and wasn't really in his mind that he was going to commit that night, but he worked with Larry Johnson, defensive line coach, for a while, and that night, and he basically committed right there on the spot. And the thing, what you've seen about him is he has progressively gotten better. I mean, he was already a big-time recruit, and he progressively got better towards the fact of when he got to the U.S. Army All-American game in San Antonio back in early January. He was as good a player as there was on the field.
Absolutely. I remember I did a story on him in the fall. It was early in the season. In the first game or two, he didn't have a ton of sacks, and he was incredibly frustrated, even though Coach told me they were double-teaming and triple-teaming and running away from him. but he was still furious that he hadn't gotten those sacks, and that just tells you the kind of dedication, the kind of passion he has for the game.
Yeah, but what really stands out to me about this whole group, and we could go down player by player, but like the kid they signed out of Kemp, Texas, wide receiver Elijah Gardner. I think Urban Meyer and I are now the only, and Kevin Wilson are only 3 people in this building who've ever been to Kemp, Texas. That was my back way from Lufkin to Dallas, US 175. But I digress. Mark Pantoni and his staff have a continual file on players, and there was no secret that they were trying to get at least a third receiver in this class. And after Tyjon Lindsey decommitted, and Mark Pantoni and staff had a deep enough. I just said his name because he walked right behind us there. I wanted to get a little bit of a pub for him, but. Bottom line is they had a deep Rolodex, and they kept going through it until they finally got that third receiver. And the thing about this guy is this guy definitely could be a diamond in the rough. He's 6'5", 185, putting on weight as we speak. But you watch his video, definitely against lesser opponent, 3A competition in Texas. But he stands out, and and his speed and his ability to go and get the football, and also to run the ball, run jet sweeps and things like that. He brings a lot to the table.
And it kind of speaks to what Ohio State and other programs like Alabama, and I think Alabama is the trendsetter. Ohio State's player development department has grown from next to nothing, a 1 or 2 man department, to Mark Pantoni said today, these things in the future are going to start to rival like NFL teams in terms of the breadth of and the number of people that are in these departments. Ohio State's social media department has blown up. I mean, this is professional. This is professionalized. This is not just a college program. This is professionalized in every way.
Well, bottom line is, the reason it's like that is because there's a lot invested in recruiting players, and there's a lot expected of them when they show up at a place like Ohio State or Alabama or USC, which is definitely back on the beam.
Right.
And while they had a good day, matter of fact, they got the Jay Tefeli kid who Ohio State was in on. They got the big defensive tackle out of Utah to come there today. But bottom line is you're going to make mistakes, but the fewer mistakes you can make in recruiting, the better off you are 3 years from now. And that's where this stands out. And like you said, man, when you've got a 3-and-flea situation going on with a lot of the big-time players, you've got to have either people in the pipeline or people on the way. And Ohio State has figured out how to do both in the last 6 years under Urban Meyer with this recruiting.
And what's interesting is that last year they only had really a handful of seniors. Pat Elflein leading the way, but it was a very small senior class. So you knew that this recruiting class, even with the NFL department, was going to be fairly small. But
see, I don't call 21 small.
No, but
by any stretch, just the limit's 25.
And
unless you're in the SEC.
Yeah, well, and there have been a few transfers, and there will be a few more because they're going to be over the limit. They have to pare the roster a little bit, but. What's amazing is the last 2 classes. Last year's class was great. This year's class was great. It's the upper class, the 2014-15 class. 15, they need to they're going to be pushed from behind by the younger players.
Well, this is kind of reminds me when Lucy was working on the conveyor belt at the chocolate factory, and she and Ethel, and they were having to keep up, and then finally, if you don't keep up, you get left behind.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the situation here at Ohio State now. I mean, you look at the quarterback situation, like you just talked about a while ago. With you've got J.T. Barrett back. Some people thought he might be leaving after this year, one way or the other. But now you've got a logjam there. I mean, no other way to put it. Joe Burrow sitting there champing at the bit. Everybody saw him playing the spring game. They know what he's all about. You got Dwayne Haskins Jr., who Urban Meyer really liked this time a year ago, was singing his praises like you wouldn't believe. Most ready quarterback he's ever seen coming out of high school. Then they signed Tate Martell, what was it, Gatorade or whatever it was, USA Today, whatever it was, Player of the Year, National Player of the Year, not Offensive Player of the Year, National Player of the Year, who was 43-0 as a starter at Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas, threw a ton of touchdown passes this year and just 1 interception, is basically a playmaker, but also a great reader of defenses, et cetera. And then you got Emory Jones probably coming next year, who a lot of people think is going to be the #1 dual threat quarterback prospect in the country. You got to get on with the program, and because the competition is keen.
And we talked to Tate Martell a little bit today, and you can tell, first of all, he's like 5'11", so he's been told at every stage of his career, you're too short, you're too short. He's surpassed that. He wants to compete now for the job. I mean, he's not going to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to wait my turn behind J.T. Barrett. That's probably what's going to happen. But his mindset is, I'm ready to compete right now. And I think that's the mindset for all these guys.
Do you know what's amazing about Tate Martell, though, that people are really overlooking, pardon the expression, because of him being 5'11", maybe on a good day, is that he's 43-0. A third, maybe a third to 2/5 of those wins over big-time national opponents. I mean, Cedar Hill from Texas, Aquinas from Fort Lauderdale, Bosco Prep, where Wyatt Davis is from this year. I mean, it's who that team now. That team is, for all its sakes and purposes, Gorman is a club team. They get guys from all over the place. You know, Haskell Garrett, defensive tackle who signed with Ohio State today. He's from there. Tremendous player. I mean, he's one of those guys we haven't even talked about yet. Who I'm telling you, this class is embedded with those kind of guys. But
J.K. Dobbins.
But he has proven himself at the highest, about as high a level. I'm talking about Martell, as you can do in high school as a quarterback, and he excelled. He made plays with his feet when he had to. He preferred to stand there and throw the ball. And the funny thing about him being 5'11", if you watch video of him, I was talking with him about this with a couple of recruiting guys the other day. If you watch video of him, rarely, if ever, did he have a ball batted at the line of scrimmage because he understands the game, you know. Doug Flutie was a hell of a quarterback, and he was about this tall. So, you know, I think when you get to the NFL is when they really start scrutinizing that. But in college football, they just want a guy that leads you to touchdowns and leads you to victories.
Right. I mean, you know, we're going to have at least 3 years to talk about.
Yeah, we're standing in the hall here now. It's like a three-way street.
We'll have 3 years to obviously follow these guys' careers. Some guys will make it, some guys won't.
Well, who's the guy right now that you think is definitely destined for stardom from this group?
You know, the one guy that stood out to me today, just his presence, was Jeffrey Okudah.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that this is a guy who is coming in with a very mature mindset, and obviously is very talented. I just liked his
demeanor,
the feel that I got from him.
Oh, I agree. I mean, from talking to him a little bit in the before he showed up, and then today, but yeah, I mean, this guy jumps off the chart at you. Yeah. Of course, he might be in final analysis the highest rated of the recruits when you get right down to it. I mean, Chase Young is right there too. Chase Young made an elevator ride to start him his senior year, like we talked about a while ago. But Sean Wade is the same way. I mean, here's a guy. He commits to Ohio State, and I'm telling you, Alabama, came after him hard, just like Alabama tried to get after Chase Young hard, and they stood their ground. But I'm telling you, the guy I really like out of this group is Wyatt Davis, man. I know I said that, but, man, the line is where you either make or break it, and he's the guy that I just think is going to really be a presence from day one when he shows up. Josh Myers, keep your eye on him, but Wyatt Davis just has something about him, man, that's special. And
they can use him because the offensive line has a lot of questions. Pat Elflein was obviously an All-American, great player. He's gone. Billy Price is going to be the leader of that line. You have Jamarco Jones also. And then there are a lot of question marks. And Michael Jordan, obviously, will be very good.
We got 4 stars back, but
Isaiah Pace is going to have to hold off somebody.
Like Urban Meyer said, gave up way too many sacks last year, especially against the better defenses. See, that's the point. I mean, Ohio State had a really good offense last year, all things considered. But when you look at the way they played against the better defenses, and I don't count Oklahoma in that group. But I've caught too much flack for making fun of Big 12 non-defenses. But they did not do well. I mean, and the bottom line is that's where they have to do better, both throwing the ball, protecting J.T. Barrett, and making things happen. But yeah, you're right. But this is just real funny. We're standing here in front of a Woody Hayes sign, legendary man. The sign says, "You win with people." Woody Hayes understood recruiting just like Bear Bryant did. I mean, you can have the biggest genius in the room staring at you. And obviously Ohio State's made a huge change on its offensive staff now, bringing in former Indiana head coach Kevin Wilson to be the offensive coordinator. We're going to be writing about that in the next couple of weeks. Ryan Day, the new quarterbacks coach. But, it's the Jimmies and the Joes, as the old saying goes. And Ohio State, for the 5th straight year under Urban Meyer, got the #1 class in the Big Ten. I can't remember 2012 if it was number 1.
He salvaged that class pretty well.
It ended up being a hell of a class.
Although a lot of those guys didn't end up playing for him.
But the bottom line, that's what it's all about, is you win with people, good people. And Urban Meyer thinks he's gotten that. So, again, I mean, I'm telling you, you read him as well as I do. I think he's as excited about this class as anyone I've ever seen him.
Yeah.
And because he knows there are a lot of guys that are going to play early and are going to contribute to the team from the standpoint of their upside is so huge.
Right, right. Well, we'll be following these guys for the next several years, and
Until next time, whatever next time is, this is Tim May.
And Bill Rabinowitz. Thanks for watching.